or counselors or some of the other HR services out there. So my training has been based on integral theory, and it's focused on, life changes. So coming out of that, I've done an awful lot of life study for probably 40 years on topics all around this. So I'm pretty well grounded in it. I spend a lot of my life exploring the topics, and I find it to be as interesting and more interesting at times than the hard sciences of business. So with that being said, what I intend to do this morning is cover a couple of things, delving a little bit deeper into a topic or two that we ended up covering last week. So a couple of comments. Number one, this process that we're now embarked upon is not a sprint. For those of us who pedal bike, I'm a big cyclist. We're now into a long run. We're into what we call a century or a marathon if you were a runner. I'm expecting, and I think we're all coming to the realization that this is not a week or 2 week situation we're in. So we need to be able to prepare ourselves to spend time in the saddle and pedal, and not pedal with our group like we used to. We'd have a peloton and we'd draft off each other. The rules of the game have changed. So just know that. So we have to get ourselves sensitized to that. I want to review a couple of things we covered last week, and then we'll move into my two fun topics today. And from there, we'll open up and have some dialogue, which I think is as healing for everybody as getting a bit of knowledge. So what we covered last Friday was just a couple of things. Number one, we get to choose fear as being either a teacher to us, as in a coach, or as our jailer. And we went through that last week, and we spent a fair bit of time exploring that. We also named some of the related emotions to fear, and I want to just name them again because, in any challenge we get with emotions, sometimes just naming them, identifying them, and looking at them helps mitigate them. And so fears is one, but it's wrapped around a whole bunch of other things, such as uncertainty, which we will have experienced, hopelessness, anxiety, denial, rage. There's anger. And when we talk about anger, it's probably better to use the word righteous anger, righteous rage. And that is coming at it from a more wholesome place. And we talked about those emotions that a lot of people would identify them as the dark arts of the emotions. They're bad emotions or not, but they're really not. Every single emotion is meant to be embodied, to be owned, to lean into it, to take what it's meant to guide you with, and then move on. And fear is one that we all know awakens us to the reality that we have to protect ourselves from what's happening in life generally, particularly right now, the virus. So what it enables us to do is to say, I am fearful of what can happen. I will now be careful, and I move myself into fearfulness. And thus the name we placed on this little, which is apparently going to be a multi-week event. On the other side of those emotions, we got emotions that we call good emotions. And we went through these last week: compassion, empathy, gratitude, mindfulness, trust, and love. And the same applies to them. Each offers you a good takeaway. And whether it be those so-called bad emotions or the good emotions, understand that we are not our emotions. We own them. They don't own us. And we are never anxiety. We have an anxious moment. We have a fearful moment, but we are not fear. So we went through that. We also talked about that when you embrace emotions and own your emotions and the voices that come with them, and they talk to us, then we move through that particular moment, that particular topic, into wisdom. So as we let the emotions come in, deal with them, process them, and move through them, we become wise in that topic. We also spoke of considering this time that we're now in as being a retreat rather than an isolation. And a retreat, break it into two words, is giving ourselves a treat. It is an opportunity for us to find time to do things that we probably could not do before. We moved from that, and I introduced a term that was done by a great psychologist out of Harvard called pockets of control. So as we move through this, we find ways and means to establish and take back a little tiny bit of control. And I'm going to talk a little bit on control in a moment. So we do know that the emotions and our experience all have value. We will learn from them, but you have to place the following in your mind and your heart and your soul: is do not attach to them. There's no right, there's no wrong, and there's no need to label them as good or bad. So that's what we came out of last week. So what I want to do today is cover pretty well two topics, and they're probably the same side. They're probably the same coin, different sides, and they're going to get more and more and more illuminated in our downtime and our quiet time. So these are going to become more active, and we need to very consciously explore them and deal with them. And there's a funny thing happening. So for those who were on this last week, and for some of my staff who are online here who had a session with me before, in that short period of time, you are beginning to realize that the shock has sort of hit me in the face, and I'm actually getting used to this, sad to say. And I'm a person, and in my coaching program, and how we actually get people to change behaviors on a particular topic is by the use of metaphors. And I love metaphors. The virus, if we can put it into a metaphorical perspective, is like you've got a grizzly bear after moving in next door to you. And the grizzly bear moved in 3 weeks ago. You're afraid to go out of your house at all. You look out and the grizzly bear is moving around. But over time, you realize that you do have to live your life. So you find a way to get the courage, the bravery to step outside your house, but you keep a very big distance from said grizzly bear. And after you do this for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, you get to understand the pattern of the grizzly bear, and you in turn create your pattern around the grizzly bear. Now, you don't know if the grizzly bear is going to move out in a week or 2 weeks or 5 years. But what happens is we accept the grizzly bear, and we focus on our careful approach to life, and we avoid the grizzly bear. So you can name the grizzly bear what you want. He will not change. He will not move until he himself has finished whatever journey he's on. So what's happening? We are creating those pockets of control even before we label them as a pocket of control. And here's what we all have done. And I've seen it just in speaking to some people since our conversations last week. I saw it a week or so ago. I was on a larger Zoom with a Buddhist monk with 135 people. And we did a 2-hour session every day, 7 days in a row. And it was basically just an open dialogue on people expressing their emotions. And throughout the 7-day period, you could see the stress lines disappearing from people simply by naming it and talking to it and owning it and embracing it and so on. So here's what we have all done. Since we spoke last, we have accepted the shock. We don't have any choice. So the shock of the virus in our lives is accepted. Do we like it? No. Do we want it? No. Is it irritating us? Yes. Has it caused it to change our lives? Yes. But guess what? We have no choice but to accept it. 2, we are accepting our loss of control. Because for most of us, we actually felt that we had control of our lives. And what this is validating is that when you sit back and get into it, we never really had control. We think we have control. We get some semblance of these pockets of control. But overall, we truly don't have full control of our lives. And that goes all the way from birth to death. And again, the Buddhists use a term called impermanence, and it's the impermanence of everything. It's the impermanence of the virus. The virus will come and will go. It's just a matter that we have to accept that there are times that we don't control life, and we have to understand and live with that. We have come to acknowledge that we're all in this together. How cool is that? Ron and I were chatting a little earlier about how many people Rhonda and her team have touched in a very short period of time. And it is exponentially larger than the amount of people that they would have touched without the virus, without this new means and mode of connecting. And here's a really beautiful one, is that we're surrendering to this new reality. And we're surrendering to the reality of connecting more and more with people that we probably don't know, but are part and parcel of this journey that we're on. And we're surrendering to these new ways and means of communication, Zoom being one, Skype another, and we talked earlier about house party for smaller get-togethers. And then the other reality for all of us is that we're becoming comfortable with slowing down. We are actually at peace with the fact that it's okay if I am home and for a period of time doing absolutely nothing. It is okay. Some of my staff are on the line and they get the benefit of working at home, and throughout the day, they can spend time with their children. They can be cooking meals, lunchtimes, which they never had the opportunity to do before. So we're really comfortable with that new space and place of slowing down. So what I want to talk about today is a really cute term, and it's a monkey brain and mindfulness. Two things, opposite sides of the same coin. And both of them, when we talk to them, will give us a clue on how to move from on to off. And prior to this virus, not many of us actually thought about that. Not many of us actually said, let's take an opportunity and do absolutely nothing. What we usually do is let's all get together and do something. So to be healthy, to be complete, to know ourselves, to talk to ourselves has to be done in silence and quiet. Monkey brain is known in the Buddhist terminology as a monkey mind, and they got a cool word on it called kapasita, which is the Buddhist approach to the monkey mind. And what you have to realize is each one of us, on average, in a day, will process 50,000 different thoughts every day. So that monkey brain is one that's unsettled, it's restless, it's confused, it is absolutely, totally, easily distracted. And while we all know, people, friends of ours who are attention deficit disorder, well, that is a visible example of a monkey brain, monkey mind in full functionality. But the monkey brain also operates your inner critic. The monkey brain tells you gives you all the reasons not to do something. It's the one that puts up this thing that says you're not good enough to do whatever or to be whatever. And it's so very, very, very important. So the whole piece of it is to understand that it's there, it's yours, you own it, and you are allowing it to run wild. So you have to learn to sort of welcome your monkey mind in too, and get grounded with said monkey mind. And then you learn how to calm it and how to control it. So how do we do that? Because the monkey mind feeds on stimuli and we want it to chill down. So that's when we move into mindfulness. And we've all heard the term, and anybody who's touched at all on Buddhism will understand mindfulness practices and how important they are to your whole body. And the essence of mindfulness it's really simple. It's a matter of being present. It's being in the now moment. And so many people cannot do that. When you're mindful, you are awake, you're alert, you are focused. And there are so many, many, many ways to be mindful. And I can ream off so many that you'd sit back and say, my God, I didn't realize that was a way to be mindful. But we understand meditation. We understand mindful breathing. We understand in the Buddhist terms, sitting, which brings you to being grounded. And we're going to do a little short exercise in that this morning. But the other ways that you can get yourself into that moment are infinite. Like the Buddhists do chanting, and we've all heard of the term Om. And when you do that, it resonates in your body, in your core. But as you focus on that, your mind goes into that sole one thing. In Turkey, dervishes do a whirling process, and they are known as whirling dervishes. So they ground themselves by balancing their chakras, and we can talk a little bit about that in a moment. Then you've got beads that Buddhists have, and appropriately for this time of the year, the Catholic rosary beads, jogging, cycling, and so on. So all of those get you to a place where you're focused on one thing only at the moment, which forces you to be present. So the objective of mindfulness practices is that you control what's going on up here. You get to live in the moment. You get to observe your thoughts objectively. And in so doing, things happen to your body, to your mind, to your breathing. So what we're going to do this morning is, and I've done this once before at a Board of Trade session years ago, and I'm not going to guide everybody in a guided meditation on this session, though we may do one in the future. But what I want us to do is to breathe together. And I remember when I did this at the Board of Trade before, it was so funny because I was at some hotel and we were talking about how great this is. I'm going to get us to breathe together as if we're not breathing together right now, because we are all subconsciously breathing. But when I invite us to breathe together in a second, I'm going to have us do it consciously with focus. And I will then explain what happened after we do it. Because some of us left-brain logical people love to understand in an analytical form what's happening in our metaphysical, esoteric beings. So generally speaking, this is a very sexist statement I'm about to make. Generally, females have a much stronger connection to their intuitive self, to their higher self, to the voices inside, than do males. And it tends to be an easier practice for women generally till men chill down and go there. So what we're going to do is we're going to breathe. So the thing about breathing is we do it every single moment, every single day. But in this particular case, we want you to deliberately set yourself up to be a container of breath. And for those who are sitting down, it simply means putting your 2 feet on the floor. It means squaring your body. It means getting your posture, move your head. We could go through the whole process that many do of rotating your shoulders and so on. But the idea is to sit, get comfortable as you are comfortable. Whatever works for you is a matter of releasing your body, is a matter of becoming conscious of any tensions you feel in your body, and just let them go. It's a matter of being aware that where your arms are touching the chair, you actually feel the chair. It's a matter of feeling when your feet are on the floor that I have the sensation of my feet on the floor. And so the thing is it gets you into the moment that I now am present. Let's just start. So what we're going to do is we're going to breathe. And Rhonda, can you let me do a screen share here for a sec? You
should be able to take over. Go right for it.
okay.
You go down the bottom.
Okay. No, got her.
See if it works.
I'm still disabled.
Okay, I'm going to enable it. Bear with me.
I'm bearing, no problem. And as we're waiting for that, so we're going to do 2 breaths only. That's what's going to happen. And I'm going to guide us through it simply by counting. And I'm going to use 7 breaths in, and we're going to use 7 breaths out. And we're going to do that twice. And when you're breathing, I'm going to invite you to breathe from the seat to your head on the in breath, and from your head to your seat on the out breath. And then when we do that, I will then explain what we did and why it was that way. So here we go. So just
try.
this is just to give you a visual if you need a visual. And people who are comfortable, close your eyes. Those not on the screen, no problem at all. And so we just want to start off by just exhaling first of all, and you're going to exhale out through your seat. So we're going to go out, and it's gone. And now we're going to slowly breathe in to the count of 7. So slowly to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hold for a second and slowly out from your head down. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Out again and slowly in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hold. And now we're breathing out. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And just sit for a second. Okay, so what you just did was a micro meditation. What you just did was you took in the energy of Mother Earth, if I can give you that visual. You brought your breath up through your chakras, of which there are 7, starting with your perineum and running all the way up through your solar plexus, your heart, your throat, your third eye, your brain. So the chakras are energy centers in your body. And I invite anybody to Google it. It'll do you a world of good to understand what they are and how they affect your body. So the idea is, I love doing a breathing chakra meditation, which now that you've just done that, anytime you feel a touch of stress, anytime you feel that you're out of sorts, anytime you feel your monkey brain coming alive, you could actually do that. Sit back and use a simple counting meditation. And there's no magic to whether you want to breathe in for 2 or 22. The reality is that when you do that repetitively, your brain will slow down. So let me just throw up one more graphic, and this is a fun one. I put this up at the Board of Trade a while back. This one lets me explain what happens to your, let me just get this set up here and there. Let's see if I can make this happen. Okay, everybody seeing my fun graphic here? So, Ron, are you seeing that? Good. Okay. So we have four principal brain waves operating in our head, in this gray matter between the ears. And that's beta, alpha, theta, and delta. And what we do when we're working our lives normally and engaged normally, we are in a beta level of consciousness. And our brain waves, if you look at them, are pretty much moving, and they're active and extremely active. So that's your monkey brain. It's going crazy. And you can see the notes on the side. You know, your mind body is active and busy. Short-term memory is being used. Long-term memory is not engaged at all, and so on. So as we move in meditation, we're taking ourselves from beta down into theta. We don't go to delta, because once we hit delta, we're most likely snoring and cutting some logs. But beta, alpha, and theta is where we go as we meditate. So meditation takes you down through alpha into theta. And when you get into theta, you are getting into, your creative self. You are in a touch with your higher self. You are listening to your guidance from yourself. You're into the esoteric, the metaphysical, and this is where you get creative. Like, we are not creative in beta. In beta, we're doing things and we cannot create. When we're in theta, we're creating things, but we're not doing. And when you understand how the brain waves work, we ourselves can control them by breathing exercises, as we just did a little one, or simply by focusing on your brain and slowing it down. And yes, you can do that. So when we meditate, we are moving ourselves from beta to theta. So what's happening are a couple of cute little things. So does anybody want to take a picture of that, because it's kind of cool? And before I take it off screen, give you 2 seconds. It's one to go back to, and the details on the side sort of put it in perspective kind of neatly. So, and I can ship this to you, Rhonda, after, if anybody would like to have that. So the thing is, when you meditate, you go somewhere, and here's where you go. And if you got this visualization, then you will get a better appreciation. So you go, number one, you go between where your heart goes thump, thump. So it's your heartbeat. So when you meditate, you are going between a heartbeat and you extend it out. You are going between a breath. So an inhale and an exhale has a small period of time whereby you go between that. And the third place you go is you go between one thought and another thought. So where one thought stops and another starts, there's a microsecond you go there. So when you meditate, you go between a heartbeat, a breath, and a thought, and you get into a zone of self. You get into knowing yourself. When there, and when meditating, the monkey mind is going to want to fight for attention. You will learn over time that thoughts will be coming, and what you do when you're in a meditative stage is you observe the thought. Oh, look, there is a thought coming. There, let it go, but I'm not going into the thought. I'm staying with my breath. So as you meditate more and more and get better practiced at it, those thoughts will become less and less. But even when they do, don't look at them as a distraction. Just look at them objectively and let them go. And, metaphorically, again, visually is good. When I did a little seated meditation yesterday morning, I was looking out on the lake behind my house, which has ice and water left on it. And when I looked out initially, there was probably 200 to 300 seagulls there. When I meditated, coincidentally, and I woke to open my eyes after about 10 or 15 minutes, there were no seagulls there. And I mean this literally, there were no seagulls there, not that I just. And it was really good to be open-eyed then and look at the blank sheet of ice that was out there, which was empty. And then to practice that idea of watching a thought fly by as the same as when a bird would fly by. Oh, there it goes. So metaphorically, it is a matter of staying in your space, grounding yourself with your vision, grounding yourself with your breath, grounding your heart so you slow down. And all three of those will bring you to a place of comfort and will quieten the monkey brain. And it's one of many, I guess, access points to mindfulness. So that is what I wanted to cover today. And I just wanted you to understand that you've just meditated for a short period of time. You don't have to meditate for an hour. You can meditate for a minute, 10 minutes, half a day. It's up to yourself. People say, I don't have time to meditate. Well, to be fair, you don't have time not to meditate, if only for a short period of time a day.